Iron Cross, man-to-man combat on the East Front, 1941-42, from Strategy and Tactics number 132. Panned, I think, by many. Notorious for some of the worst war game graphics ever. But has delivered an unbelievable amount of fun and interesting gameplay. Just really over the top. I say that's what I want to say, over the top when it comes to fun and giving an immersive game experience, an engaging game experience. Just really, really good. What's the worst thing? I mean, really, what's the worst thing I can say about this game? The worst thing that I can say, because I won't talk about graphics. I mean, I will. I guess, I mean, I recognize the graphics issues, but I just don't feel like counting the graphics among my critiques. What's the worst thing I can say? The worst thing I can say is that I would have designed the game differently in a few small areas. That's about it. Okay, so I'm going to suspend play here. This has been absolute blast and just great game timing or game time spent. But I think I've screwed up the tactics so much that I think I'd rather just suspend play, and I will definitely be coming back. So let me explain what I mean by that. But actually, before I explain that, rules, surprisingly, especially for a strategy and tactics game from this era, from this time, the 3W years, I really did not have any major problems with these rules. They're not actually that bad. I know there are a couple of holes, but I found them quick to fill. So not bad. Of course, game markers. I had to... Game markers you get, I mean, just not at all sufficient for me. I want to be able to mark fired, moved, and other things. So definitely highly deficient in the game marker area. But grabbing extra ATS markers works, fine. Works very well, actually. The combat system, I still find this very interesting. So basically you're totaling firepower, you're modifying firepower. That all makes sense. Then you're determining how many, well, actually let me back up, actually. Observation, just an absolute must at this scale and scope. So I am actually exercising the observation rules, it was actually fairly on target. I should say nothing felt egregiously wrong. So just as an example, these Russian soldiers in this building here, this multi-hex building, they should, by the ideas of real world simulation, they should have difficulty seeing these two German soldiers in down combat state in a wooded hex, and vice versa. The Germans should have difficulty seeing the Russians here, and that's what I found. Okay, So observation really worked very well, and I really like it. And the idea that, hey, you don't get observation, you still fire AP fire, it's just at half strength. That's just right on target. It worked very well. Let's see. PCs to fire. I really like it. I will say one thing about PCs to fire that I actually don't quite get. So let me use this example. Looking for a leader. Well, basically, a leader, commander is, I guess, what they're called in the game. So a commander. So this APL, Assistant Platoon Leader, when this APL is stacked with a bunch of units and they go to move, the benefit of the leader is you only test against the leader's performance rating, and they're all very high, obviously, which, by the way, is, again, that's one of the things I do differently, or that suggests something I do differently, but this is okay. But you test against the leader, and the leader passes the proficiency test, then they move as a stack. So you don't have to go through, you don't have to go through the rolling again and again and again. And that makes perfect sense. What I don't understand is why that same mechanic isn't used for shooting. I mean, why if you do that, okay, if the Russians are here in this building and the APL, the Assistant Platoon Leader, wants them all to fire together at a target, why shouldn't you just test against the proficiency rating of the commander again to have them all fire together? I don't know why that would be, personally, I don't know why that would be different for firing than for moving. And I'm not sure really what's behind that. Okay. Other than that, I found I'm going to try to be pretty thorough here. Most things I found okay about the proficiency checks. What I don't get at all is why the proficiency would go down. So you have the medium machine gun in up combat state. When the medium machine gun goes to a down combat state, the proficiency drops off by 2. I don't understand that. This one goes this one that I'm talking about goes from an 8 down to a 6. And this medium machine gun goes from 9 down to a 7. Now, I will admit, maybe the designer is saying that, so here's the medium machine gun here. Maybe the designer is saying that in the up posture, the crew is doing their jobs as a crew without any regard to any cover or anything like that, and so therefore they are more proficient at firing, and that I meant when they were in the up combat state, and then when they go to the down combat state, is the designer saying that now the crew is down lower, maybe even in the prone, or they are looking for cover, they are behind, I don't know, they are trying to get cover, and so therefore they're less proficient. Now, I will admit, okay, maybe that's what's meant, but I'll say that I have a different idea of what up and down combat state means, and so I should not impose my ideas about that onto the design. So I'll go with the explanation that I just said that would explain this, if that is in fact what the designer meant. Again, I would do things differently, but it's not my design. Okay, so other than that, I think PCs are great. And as I mentioned before, I think it's great that it goes it should go without saying, right, that when you have a stack, like you have 5 soldiers here, a team basically, and they're going to fire at the enemy, because you are rolling for PCs, every single soldier, you're getting you are getting a high variability in how much firepower the team actually generates, which is good. At this scale and scope, it's that variability that I actually agree with. So first, you understand it's a layered variability here, right? So first you go through and do all those PCs. It's possible that every single one fails their PC, and it's possible that every single one passes. Obviously, there's going to be a bell curve, and it's going to be more in the middle. But the point is, you have this much variability just for who's actually going to, take part in the fire. Then you have the variability of the dice rolls. So high variability, which I think is okay at this scale and scope. Yeah. Okay, so you total and modify firepower. That makes sense. Then you determine the number of dice, and this is where it starts getting, again, I started to pick it up, which I wasn't even sure would happen, but I definitely was. But so, and here's the movement and combat effects. Here's all your terrain types, and here's number of AP combat dice. Clear is only 1 die. 1 die. You go up to gully, it's 2 dice, or woods, it's 2 dice, marsh, it's 2 dice. 1 hex building, you're up to 3 dice, and 4 dice for multi-hex building. Then you might add a die if the target unit is in the down state, like those Germans. You're adding another die, and then firing unit moved this turn, you're adding another die. Oh, and it looks to me, and actually you could have more for improved positions, variable number of additional dice, and then AFE cover. So you have this, what is typical, I would say, is probably 1 to, what's typical? What's typical is probably 1 to 4, not uncommon to get 5, but again, you could get more. So you're so let's say we get let's say we go up to 5 dice. You're rolling those dice, you're totaling the number, and then you're comparing that to a formula derived from the firepower, and it's just a strange combat system. Now, it seemed to work, as I think comes out in the videos. Seems to work. It's just, I know what I was going to say, okay? It's strange. I did start picking up it more than I thought. It did work in practice so far, but I'm to the point in my wargaming where if I have a preference, I'm just going to say, give me a table. Just give me a table. Firepower does it well. MBA does it well. There's another one I had off the top of my head. No, I can't remember. Firepower, MBA. What was the other one? So now I say, just give me a table. That's my preference. I don't care how large the table is. I don't care how involved the table is, but just give me a table. Okay. But the combat system does work here. It does appear to work here, and it does appear to you can warm up to it, or I found myself warming up to it. Okay. Now, tactics wise, this is very interesting, and again, this is only a first partial play. This is only a first partial play. I should say first partial play of a scenario, I should say. It appears that there's some learning to do here, tactics-wise, which is great. That's the way it absolutely should be. Let's talk about machine. No, I'm going to talk first about attacks in general. So first of all, I said before about, these two forces have trouble observing each other, and that's the way it should be. That is totally, again, on target. Going along with having trouble observing each other, I think, is they have trouble harming each other, which again is okay. That's on target. Realistically, I'm looking from the Russians down here up at these Germans, and now I'm asking, okay, I need to try to concentrate as much firepower as possible, or I need to bring in indirect fire, which is not in the scenario, but basically the Russians need to do something different to break through this impasse, and that's the way. I'm okay with that. Okay. Because of the whole combat mechanics, I'm totally okay with that. Let's talk about machine guns. This is one of the strong reasons why I'm starting over, or why I'm suspending play here, and we'll start up again in a replay sometime in the future. So the German medium machine gun here, this is just an example. So you have the three machine gun modes. Okay. You have direct fire, you have spray fire, and you have fire lanes. So understand the scenario here. The Germans are set in a defense with good cover at a crossroads, and the Russians are coming on from the north onto the play area, and the Germans aren't going to know, right? The Russians can come anywhere along here and all the way down to here, so the Germans don't know specifically which direction the enemy's coming from. The point is that basically I figured out an idea, and that is that the machine guns in this situation, the machine guns should really stay in spray fire mode. They should stay in spray fire mode, and basically they should go to fire lane or direct fire only when they have an actual reason to do so. What that would have done is, with all the Russians coming on that first bound, this German machine gun, its initial range is out to 18. It's basically reaching all this area here. And with spray fire, it would have been able to engage a lot of targets. And I think that's what you want to do. The idea of the medium machine gun direct firing one hex, well, it's silly, and it's not a good use of a machine gun. I'm saying it's not a good use of a machine gun in game terms. Of course, that the same thing is true in real life. In real life, the medium machine gun should be covering a zone, not direct firing at one hex after another. And again, a fire lane comes into play when it's called for. And so all of that is good. The rules, to a degree, these rules, these mechanics, follow real world. That's great. But that's also why I think I want to start over. I mean, we also have the LMG down here. So I think the machine guns alone make me want to suspend play and start over again in the future. Better use of the machine guns. One thing I did, which seemed to work well, is, which makes perfect sense. By the way, there's a real world analogy to this as well, but the Russian player wants to spread out his what do you call them, acting leaders, whatever the term is. I can't remember the term, but the high proficiency soldiers who can act like leaders in their own hex, right? So this is specifically how it works. We have a 9 PR performance rating, 9 PR with that stack, a 10 PR with that stack, a 10 PR with that stack. That's actually the platoon leader, though. That's the commander. We have a 9 PR rifleman with this stack. We have a 9 PR rifleman with this stack. And we have a 9 PR rifleman with this stack, right? So they are actually spread out so that basically the Russians can get mobility to the maximum extent possible by using high PR soldiers, which, you know, is perfectly analogous to real world. I like it. It's, you know, great. So in, you know, really in summation, of course some wargamers just aren't going to have an interest whatsoever in the scale and scope, individual soldiers, 10-meter hexes, but that issue aside, I mean, this is such a great, I mean, just a great war game. Amazing what it brings out in a simple strategy and tactics magazine, less than one full map. You know, again, 200 counters, of course, not enough information markers, but just incredible. The interleaved sequence of play is okay. I don't know that it's my, you know, top favorite, but it seems to work.